Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Morton, and welcome to my podcast, which is entitled A Cup of Joe. This is a podcast dedicated to health and wellness. So we're going to talk about it all. And I love this subject. I'm passionate about it. And I want you to know something. I'm grateful to be a part of your journey. And again, all the different things that we're talking about are going to help you understand that you hold the key and that your success is in your hands and greatness is out there for you.
This podcast is a 98 Studios production.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of A Cup of Joe. Excited to have you with me. Thank you for joining. I'm excited to have my guest, Shaun Christian, a very good friend of mine, incredible leader in our community. He is an owner of T3 Endurance Sports. If you're in the triathlon community, you will know that here locally. Incredible store. Love it. Love your shop. Everything about it's phenomenal. He is the director of neuro-fitness at Telos, which we're going to dive into. I'm super excited to hear about this. Also the race director of a long-time event called the Timp Trail Marathon. And if you've done that event, if you're local, this is your man. This is the man that puts it on every year. And also USAT instructor and race director. All of the above. We're going to dive into this today in this podcast. So thanks for joining. The best way, though, that I can introduce Shaun, I think, today, and I want to tell a story, if that's okay. We did an event called the Grand Traverse, and it's a ski event. You have to do it in pairs. And so Shaun and I were paired up for this event, and it's a ski-mo race. So you backcountry skiing, basically, and it started in Crested Butte, Colorado, and it finished at Aspen, Colorado. And it's 38 miles. Is that right? 39, yeah. Something like that. You go up and it's freezing. We started at 11 o'clock at night. Is single digits, go up to the top of Crested Butte, and then you just basically drop into the backcountry and you start going from there. And the rule of this race is, because it's all backcountry, if you don't make the first two cutoffs, they make you turn around. There's nobody to rescue you because you're out in the middle of nowhere. You have to turn around. So we're going up this grind all night long. Remember that? Just long grind.
Never ending.
Never seems like it was never ending. Cold, freezing in this beautiful, but and these lights start passing us. Because if you didn't make it, if you know you're not going to hit the cutoff, you have to turn around, you have to go back. Nobody's saving you. So they start passing us one by one. Psychologically, it's kind of getting into my brain a little bit. And we made that first cutoff. It's now the sun's starting to peak, but I'm starting to doubt whether I'm going to get that second cutoff. And I've never not finished an event. So I was like, and I'm looking at it and it's like undaunting feeling. It was up at the top of this ridge line. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't remember. We had like an hour and a half or something.
Yeah, it's a big climb to the top. You can just see it way up there.
And I'm just getting as much from this aid station. It was only water, but I'm loading up on my water because I had run out of water, and I'm down in a bunch of chews, and I'm starting to doubt myself. And Shaun just very calmly just said, "Joe, we're going now. You can do this." I'm like, yes, I could do this. And I just downed a bunch of chews and boom, we went off. I entered my pain cave, so to speak, and just started going up that. And it was that belief that you had in me, Shaun. I really appreciate that because I got the proof right here. I got the finisher medal.
It's a well-earned medal right there.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And we made it to that cutoff with like a minute or 2 minutes. I don't remember what it was.
I think we might have been the last group to come through that before the cutoff.
It was tight, but we made it and we finished that event. And I have to thank you. And that's a fitting way, in my opinion, to introduce you, because this is what you work with people. You work with people, you coach them, you encourage them. And this is kind of what you do, and you do it very well. And you have a very calming approach to it. And I appreciate that as a friend. And that moment for me was very, very important. And I think back on that, and I've thanked you several times, but I thank you on this podcast as well for that. But that's a great way to introduce you.
Thank you.
And I thought that would be a good way to just welcome you to this podcast. Thanks for joining.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it. And before we get into Telos, we were talking the other day. You and I kind of entered the triathlon world around the same time, right?
Yeah, we did. In fact, we did some of the same races, and we didn't even know we were there together. Mm-hmm. One big one in Cancun, right?
Yeah, that's right. I looked it up. It was 2003.
2003.
Mm-hmm. They'd never done it again. That was the only year.
It was a pretty epic event.
I know. We both did it. That was kind of cool. But since then, I mean, you've done what you've done. Who knows how many triathlons you put on triathlons?
Yeah, put on triathlons. I got into the long distance triathlons, so a lot of Ironman distance like yourself, and then kind of migrated a little bit more into the mountains because I really love the mountain events. So some longer mountain bike races and ultra marathons, the Wasatch 100, obviously the Squaw Peak 50. I've done that 11 times.
Whoa.
But just
11?
a lot of, and Wasatch 5 times. So just a lot of mountain time, which kind of converted me a little bit into expedition adventure racing, which are, multi-day staged races comprised of mountain biking, canyoneering, rock climbing, a lot of paddling, trekking, all done by compass and map and done in teams. And that's what I loved about that ski race, right? It wasn't just you, wasn't me individually. It was a team event. Mm-hmm. So you don't finish, I don't finish. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like that team dynamic. And that's kind of where I've been at the last 5 years is adventure racing with teams. Yeah.
And you've done them all over. You've done, I know, Oregon, I think?
Oregon, Expedition Oregon a couple times. Fiji was the big one. And in the Wasatch, they had 4 wins. It was a 7-day adventure race that was here back in like 2000 and
was that your first one?
6?
Was that your first one that kind of
was my first expedition level. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I had done a couple 24-hour races, but that was my first multi-day, 7-day expedition style racing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I got to support you on that one in Fiji, which was epic. I mean, incredible. The coolest race I've ever done. Amazing. And I can attest again to the inspiration that you brought to the team and that calming effect. And it was like amazing to watch you, to be able to be behind the scenes and watch you and the team, of course, James and the rest, Aaron and the rest of the team. Incredible team. That was so remarkable.
Yeah, that was quite the event. We couldn't have done it without you. So you were
kind.
You say behind the scenes, but you were up front in the scenes. Like every step we made, we were thinking of you. We got to get to Joe. Joe will get us to the next checkpoint. It's like, yeah.
Wow.
So
that was an honor for me to be there. That was incredible. And just, it's almost like a blur right now, because we couldn't take pictures. That was part of the thing. And it's almost like a blur that took place,
The nice thing is we can always kind of relive it because it's still on Amazon.
It's still
Prime,
on
right?
Amazon. Yeah. In fact, you can watch it. The Eco Challenge, the world's toughest race.
Yeah.
It's on Amazon Prime. Easy to watch and really inspiring. I thought it was so many excellent team.
Absolutely.
But our team was very well focused on for the event. So I've done all these events, kind of brought you to Telos. And I remember, in fact, we were talking about this the other day when I first started getting to triathlons. I would see the Telos trucks or trailers at the different events, Echo Reservoir and Jordan Allen. Tell us about that. So tell us about Telos and how this because you use sports, you use endurance sports to teach youth through troubled times.
Yeah. And on so many different levels, right? Mm-hmm. But it's one of the pillars that we use to help our students be successful in life. And, we started this back in 2004, and the students back then are so much different than the students we have now, but the same principles and benefits that we get out of exercise are the same. So back then, it was different time. It was pre-cell phone or smartphone, right? So
pre-social media.
Yeah, pre all that. The students we had were a little bit more resilient back then. They kind of had to work for things. Mm-hmm. And so our big draw was to help, with anxiety and depression, self-esteem, with focus, right? Overall health. But now those principles still apply, but now it's so much more, it's changed, it's evolved. Because now with the smartphones, everyone, including me, have gotten less resilient because everything's become so easy. I can have all the information I want right in my phone, right in my hand. I can order a meal. I can order a car. I can spend hours just looking at social media, just wasting time but it's all right in my hands, right? Back then they didn't have that. So we're kind of seeing a different dynamic of student, and their needs are a little bit different. And it's amazing how endurance sports kind of help that. If you think about like TikTok, it's like instant gratification. It's like one story after another. And that kind of rewires the brain into next, always wanting something different and new. And so endurance really kind of forces you to stay focused and in the moment, which helps combat that instant gratification that the students are having. So that's a cool thing about the endurance part of what we do. Now, the motor function, like high skilled motor function, like swimming, really kind of changes the way the brain works with cognitive function, right? They helps them focus more. So all around, we're seeing big success in how our students perform in school, how they open up in therapy. And I always say this. I'm probably talking too much, but I always say this with the clinicians is motion kind of stirs up emotion. And so when we're out on our 8-mile trail runs in the morning, the boys will have moments where past trauma stirs up, or something they're working on in therapy comes up, just because it's a hard moment, right? They're under stress and stuff comes out. And what an amazing place to be to work on those issues that they're having in a team environment, because they have other peers with them, 2 coaches, and in the mountains. I mean, what a better setting and place to open up to, how it is, right? When we're running and we're biking together, how we have some of the best discussions we ever have out there.
Incredible.
Yeah. So the same thing with our students. And so it creates a great platform, and there's so many benefits, the basics, right? Of neurotransmitters and the feel good dopamine stuff and the anti-anxiety. It's like really the natural cure for depression and anxiety, because we're constantly with these boys putting them under stress. It's like exposure therapy, right? So with the smartphone and with us being less resilient, things stress us out way more than they ever have, right? So just the smallest things can stress them out. So if we're constantly putting them under stress in a healthy way, their anti-anxiety muscle just gets bigger and bigger. And so when things come their way in therapy, in relationships, at home, at school, at work, they're much more successful and have the skills and tools to combat all those issues that they've had.
That must be very rewarding for you guys to see them go through, I mean, I had my moment out in the mountains. We all do. When you're out there and you're pressed, it's amazing what can come out. You must see some amazing progress with people.
Absolutely, yeah. It's cool to see the progression, right? Because I usually get to work with these students on average 11 months. So I'll get to see them come in where their low resiliency level then, and then how far they come in 11 months is amazing. And we all have our moments, right? One student could be struggling one day, and then I could have a struggling day out there, and they all kind of rally around me and help me out. So it's kind of a cool team environment. We call it the elite team, but really it's just an honors PE class that I coach.
That's so cool. And this last weekend, you did a triathlon where the students, your boys, were able to be involved in a triathlon. You got parents involved, and that must have been really cool to see them go to build towards something that they had to build towards. So they're setting goals.
Absolutely. So we also host triathlon races, but it's been a while since we've hosted them. It's called the Turkey Tri and the Timp Tri. It's here in Orem. It's a local race. I did the
Turkey Tri years and years ago.
Yeah. I mean, we hosted that race for 13 years. The Orem Rec Center did construction, so we weren't able to do it then. The following year we had COVID, and then we just couldn't get permits the year after that because the police officers were so low in number. COVID kind of changed the how it looked. But this was the first time we've had an actual race with all the boys since 2017. Yeah. I mean, we've done a lot of other race, like running races, but this is the first time where we've actually hosted a race that the boys participated in. And I kind of forgot how big of an observation tool a therapeutic observation tool the race is.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of weird. I didn't even really think about it. I'm like, I thought, it's okay if we don't do races because we're training for triathlons every week. So it's not a big deal if we do a race, but I forgot how big of a critical piece it was just to observe the boys, and some struggled, some quit, some succeeded beyond what I thought they could do. So it's kind of cool to be able to see that. And it's really interesting to see that it correlates with how they're doing therapeutically.
Mm-hmm.
So we have students that aren't really bought in to getting help. They haven't really taken a deep inventory and say, okay, I see these things in myself and I want and need to change them. They're not there yet. At least we were able to see who wasn't there yet, because those are the students that really struggled on Friday at the race.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was cool.
Wow. That's cool. Are there any other events do you get them into any of the other running events that are in the area, or?
We do some like 10K. Our next event it's called Family Days, where we bring all the families in. It happens 4 times a year, and the next one's in November. And for that race, we're doing, it's called Run for Mental Health. And it's a 5K, 10K just at Timpanogos Park.
Is that for everyone, or is
that's a private event? That's a private event for our families and students. Yeah. Yeah. So that's really cool. We don't race as much as we used to do, just because we have so many students now that it's kind of complicated getting wetsuits and transporting all the bikes to and from. So we've really just kind of honed in on creating our own events, our own private events that kind of they feel like a race. They really are a race. They're timed events. And just as a tool to kind of observe. I totally miss that. But it's great because you get to take them through a goal-setting process, goal-achieving process. They set their sights, like this triathlon, for example, this past weekend. I mean, they didn't just wake up that day and, I'm going to do triathlon. You had to prepare for that, right? Right. So we're training, Monday through Thursday, swim, bike, run. And it's done in like a school setting. It's like a PE class. We call it the neuro-fitness class. And they have a goal at the beginning. They set goals for the whole quarter. And then we do a baseline test on their swim time, their run time, and indoor spin time for watts and time. And then we compare that to how they've progressed at the end of the quarter. So the event that we held on Friday was the closing of the quarter. Our quarter ends tomorrow. So that was kind of like their final grade. So we also kind of, we connect that with their treatment team goals. So if the students want to advance in phase, we have earth phase, which is kind of their observatory beginning stage, rain phase, sun phase, growth phase, and telos phase. So in order for them to advance to the next phase, they have had to have completed the last race that we've hosted. And so it ties into their master treatment plan, which always has a resiliency piece to it, which is tied into the triathlon program. Well, that's cool. Yeah. Wow, that's great. So the other day we were mountain biking, and we got into this discussion of your why, knowing your why. And I thought it was really cool because you started to dive into that a little bit. And then we got distracted because we were climbing a mountain. But talk about the why. Why, like to help your boys know their why. And why is that important in the process? Absolutely. The why is super important. I run groups within our PE class too. So we'll have actually in-class settings where we run through groups. And one of those groups is called Your Why. And it's so important. I kind of started off with the boys by saying, what's your why for doing what we do? And usually they kind of stumble and like they don't really know. And I say this is at the beginning, like when they're at the beginning of the group that I run. And I'll say, if your why right now is because it's part of your school class grade or your master treatment plan, or you're doing it because I come to your room and wake you up and get you to go, I'm like, that's not going to work because I'm not following you home. I won't be there to get you up in the morning and get you motivated and get you going. So you've got to come up with your own why, your own passion for doing it. Whether that's, I have a student right now that wrestles, whether that's getting prepared to be successful in wrestling season, or whether it's because you want to look a certain way or feel a certain way, or because you just want to be resilient. And this is the way you do it, is by challenging yourself every day, by getting up and doing something hard. So it's really important that they find their why. Otherwise, we're just doing it just for show right now. And when they go home, they lose it. So it's critical that they find their own personal why behind it, so they continue to do it.
Do you find that that's a process throughout the time that they're with you, or does it come relatively quick, or is that just an individual thing?
No, it's generally a process, and some students never get there. Some students just kind of white knuckle it through the whole program. They do what's asked of them, but they never really internalize it. And so it's kind of, they did it, but chances of them going home and being successful doing it at home aren't very good. So
there is a correlation between understanding your why and the progress that they make, but not just through the program, but of course, ultimately what you're wanting to have after the program, correct? I mean, you would see this.
Long-term goal is for them to go home, to find something that they like in our program, that they make it their own, find their why behind it, take it home with them, continue it, and just making it a lifetime. I had a student on Sunday that ran the Chicago Marathon that was, here.
Really?
Yeah. So, and he ran fast. He ran like a 2:41. So, yeah. So just to be able to go.
That must be very rewarding for you. I mean,
very, very rewarding. Yeah. And there's a lot of success stories like that. But for them to find that passion, that why, and to be able to continue, throughout their whole life. And that's another reason why we throw so much activities at them. Swimming, biking, running, lifting. Our rec therapy program is, skiing, mountain biking, rock climbing, canyoneering, and then all the high school sports that come with it. We have a lot of students who have never participated in high school sports, but they do it in our program. So the reason behind that is we're hoping that something sticks, that they fall in love with, and they take it home and do it for the rest of their life, right? And then 2, we're hoping that we throw something at them that scares them and that challenges them, and that we can build resilience upon that.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the Chicago Marathon, wasn't the world record set there?
2 hours and 35 seconds. I mean,
incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Like that took place at the Chicago. James was there.
Fast.
James was there doing that one too. Incredible. So, faith and belief in oneself. Let's talk about that for just a minute. Faith and belief in oneself. Do you do certain, because you're going to want to instill that, I'm sure, with the boys to help them have belief in themselves, their abilities, what they're trying to accomplish. Do you have certain activities that you do to help with the why and with faith and belief in themselves? And why is that important, do you think?
Now, are you talking more like self-confidence?
Self-confidence, self-belief.
Yeah. They do a lot of work with their therapist when it comes to that, because identity is at this age, right? The niche that I work with, just so everybody knows, is I'm working with 13 to 17-year-old males that are struggling with school and relationships. Those are the kind of students that we work with. And identity is a big part of the issues, right? Almost every student kind of has an identity piece worked into their master treatment plan. And the therapists work miracles when it comes to that. I think it almost comes naturally as they start to exercise. They feel better about themselves. They look in the mirror and see like, oh, I like what I see, and they want more of it. They build self-confidence. I think the other piece that comes with exercise is the groups that our students were hanging out with at home were not healthy, right? Like you've heard, you are really who your 5 best friends and who you hang out with. You are who you hang out with. So if they were at home hanging out with, people that were getting them in trouble, versus here where they're hanging out with people who are exercising and promoting healthy things, that's what we're also hoping for. When they go home and they're exercising and finding that community, they'll have a better success socially as well, right? Because it'd be really easy for them to step right back into old habits and patterns if they're hanging out with the same people. So we're trying to also instill it's critical that you go home and find and hang out with your closest friends or healthy influences. They're exercising, they're mountain biking, they're rock climbing, they're doing outside activities, they're being healthy. So that's critical.
So be around people that are going to help you achieve those goals and help you achieve your objectives and what you're trying to accomplish rather than pull you down.
Right. And I think that kind of speaks to that self-confidence piece that you're talking about too, right? It's hard to feel self-confident if you're being unhealthy. So just promoting healthiness
goes hand in hand. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And sports, endurance sports, I find makes a big difference for that. You must see that with the boys, like just giving them confidence and courage. And
every quarter. So this new quarter, I'm going to be getting a new group of students. And when we do our first run, I'll be lucky if I can get, 3 miles out of them. But at the end of this last quarter, our longest run was 8 miles. So I will progress these students from 3 miles to 8 miles within this next quarter. So they feel so awesome when they get done with that 8 mile run. It's like in the beginning of the quarter, they thought there's no way they could do that. So just seeing that their self limits are self-imposed, and they can see that there's way more, that their potential is way bigger than they thought it was, is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Do you find that fear is something that holds us all back? I mean, let's face it. Fear is something that nobody's immune to. Nobody's going to, let's talk about fear for a second, because it must affect the boys, because it affects us all. I mean, everyone watching right now, we all have fears come through. What do you see the progress when it comes to the fears and helping them overcome those fears?
Yeah. Fear is a big, it holds us all back. Right. And I see the biggest fear with these students is they're kind of in that must be seen as box. They don't want to, a lot of them have been bullied. So they have already trauma kind of associated with that. And they don't want to feel less than, and they kind of put themselves in the must be seen as box. So it was kind of cool on that race on Friday to kind of observe a lot of students in the beginning. I could see that were scared. They had definite fear, kind of acted out. They were kind of making fun of the triathlon or just being really goofy and loud. And that kind of showed me right there that, this is scaring them. It's causing them duress. And this is the behavior that we're seeing. Mm-hmm. So those are the students that I know I've got to work with John on some self-confidence, right? And building him up and kind of get, help combating the fear that he has of being seen as. He doesn't want to be last in the race, right? So it's really interesting to see how big of a factor that is in our students. It really holds them back, and they act out a lot. They'll do impulsive, dumb things just to fit in or try to fit in. Mm-hmm. And so, fear is definitely something that holds us all back.
One thing I love about endurance sports is it allows us to face our fears, I find. And I love that saying, I think it was Mark Twain, do the thing you fear the most and the death of fear is certain. And if we're fearing something, boy, just doing it, just getting into motion and just doing helps us overcome those.
Absolutely. I say that all the time. If we're not scaring ourselves, we're not really living. We're just kind of living a complacent life. And so that's when I always say that the reasons why we get up and do all these hard things is because it is scary, and it makes us feel more alive when we do that. I wouldn't say every morning, but majority of the mornings, getting these students up to do 8-mile trail runs or 30-mile bikes or all these hard things that we do, it's met with resistance, right? It scares them. They don't want to do it. Our path of least resistance is, the way they feel. And so they're really resistant in the beginning, but once we get back, the smiles on their faces and the way they feel is what makes them come back the next day.
And how different is that from us? We all do the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
Well, we're afraid for whatever reason, the weather, or I don't know, whatever's holding us back in the morning from lacing on those shoes and going out the door and go for a run or go for a bike. we're fearful of it. And yet when we come back, we're like, wow, that wasn't so hard. That was amazing.
Yeah. We're trying to create that pattern with these young men of choosing the hard over the easy, which is another group that I run, Hard Over Easy. And it's a principle of just always choosing the hard. And I tell them, every morning we wake up and every day we have hundreds of small little choices we make, whether it's, do we make our bed, not make our bed, brush our teeth, don't brush our teeth, go to school, don't go to school, do our homework, don't do our homework. So we have all these choices that we can make. The more we choose the hard, the easier life becomes. The more we choose the hard, the more we choose the hard. So it becomes a habit. And so when harder things come your way, for example, I could have, if I was in a pattern of choosing the easy and you asked me to do the podcast, which I don't, me, I'm not a big talker, but if I was in a pattern of choosing easy, I would have said, I would have come up with an excuse. Joe, I can't do it, But because I'm in a pattern of choosing the hard on a daily, it's a much easier decision, right? To say yes. And I use the example of World's Toughest Race, Fiji, all the time. And I say, I would have missed out on one of the biggest opportunities in my life had I not been in a pattern of choosing the hard, right? When James came up to me and said, hey, here's an opportunity, I wouldn't have saw it as an opportunity. I would have seen it as a scary threat. And I would have retreated and avoided rather than, yeah, I'm all in. So I tell these boys it's really important to kind of create that mindset of choosing the hard and doing it intentionally and doing it consistently. And it really kind of creates those habits of just being in that growth mindset.
Mm-hmm. I love what you're saying there about hard every day. Choose something hard every day. It's like pushing us out of our comfort zone. And it's outside of our comfort zone that we grow the most. And you probably see that so much. Of course, we see it in our own lives, but with the boys in the program that they go through. That must be, again, pretty neat to see them push out of their comfort zone, get into the hard, and then grow and develop.
Well, I would say the common denominator is the boys that we have just been living in comfort, and that's why they come to us. They've gotten too comfortable. And so everything has become too hard because they're used to living in comfort. Anything that stresses them out or causes them discomfort, they avoid and retreat. So a lot of these students have not been going to school. Anything their parents try to get them to do, they avoid. Sports, they quit sports, right? And to kind of numb everything, substances become something that they turn to. So we also use exercise and endurance sports as a way to combat substance use, right? The erase and replace model, right? We're going to turn those same endorphins that you're getting from substances, and we're going to get those in a healthy way by exercise. So, and here's an example. I have a current student that on a run last week hurt his ankle, and I thought he'd really injured it the way he acted. And we got him through the run. It was like mile 7 of the mile 8 run that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And he hobbled in. But the next day I saw him playing basketball. I'm like, I thought you really had hurt your ankle. And he's like, no, I have a low pain tolerance. And he has some substance issues, right? So I kind of tied those in. I go, you're self-diagnosing yourself as low pain tolerance. I go, if you live your life with low pain tolerance or low distress tolerance, and everything that comes your way causes you distress, I can see why you would want to numb yourself by using substances. So let's work on building that pain tolerance, that distress tolerance through exposure therapy. Let's go do hard things and stress yourself out and cause pain intentionally in a healthy way and learn to work through that, build that tolerance up. And so that's a good way for these students to kind of see that correlation between why they use and how they can use healthy alternatives to make themselves feel better and to build up that pain tolerance. Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Wow, that's really cool. I like that. So the kids come in. Let's use the example of the run. they could barely, their first run is what, 3 miles, you said, or that's where you're starting?
So that's next leveled up.
Oh, okay.
So the beginning class is not, I don't teach that class. That's about one of my other coaches, Ben.
Oh, okay.
And so those guys are running like a mile, between 1, maybe 3 when they get to the end of the quarter. So they kind of start off 1.5 to 3. So I get the next bump up from that.
Gotcha. So when they come in, they're starting from scratch. They're not jumping right to 8 miles. They're going to take through a process. I like to refer to it as short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. Do you naturally take them through that? I mean, obviously they're not jumping to 8 miles because that could, it injures people if they go too fast and they're not quite ready. But is that part of a goal setting kind of in a sense that you take them through that process? So by the time they get to 8 miles, boy, it's like they're ready to take it on.
So we don't set like those short-term goals, but they are involved in the writing of the workout. So we do a periodization style of workout. So the beginning of the quarter, we'll do just an assessment week, and then we'll dive right into a 2-week build and they know what's coming. We're going to do a 2-week build, and they know the workouts every Sunday when they come out. So we do a 2-week build, a week recovery, a 3-week build, a week recovery, and then we get into a 2-week big block of exercise that kind of leads us to the high volume of cycling and trail running and swimming. We do a lot of resistance training too. So there's at least 2 days a week where we're in the gym combining an endurance event with a resistance training event. So,
well, that helps strengthen all their muscles, and plus you learn different things in the gym too.
Yep.
Than out on the trails.
And they really like the gym.
Oh yeah.
The lifting for them is like, they love that. Well, Coach, give me more lifting days, please. That all the time.
Yeah. I've seen them over at the gym. That's kind of cool. In fact, 2 of my boys work for Telos over the years, and they loved it. It just speaks so highly of the program. So, talk about no quitting. This is a big one for you. I watched it in Fiji. I watched you go through. It's amazing to observe you guys going through that whole experience. But talk about the importance of not quitting with your boys. I'm sure this is a big part of the program.
Yeah.
And what do you find helps a person to make sure that they don't quit in their goals and what they're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, it's critical, because I think once you kind of get into a pattern of you kind of put yourself in, I can quit. When something comes up really hard again, it's kind of in the back there. I've quit before. I can do it. So for me, like, it's so important to have the mindset of never quitting, right? And taking it right to the fine line of Fiji, where had the race finished in any different order, I probably would have been forced to quit that race, right? But you keep on doing, you keep yourself in the game, right? Keep on keeping on, and being dynamic, being able to plan B, right? Let's say we're doing an Ironman and you have plan A, right? Which is, let's say 9 hours and 30 minute finish, right? You've been doing the training. You know that you can push that many watts for that many hours. You know your nutrition, what you need to consume, and something just, you didn't sleep right the night before, you got some stomach, GI issues going on. You've got to come up with plan B. So you got to be able to pivot and come up with something that works. But quitting's never even in the mindset. It's always just finding a way. It's almost like a game of chess where you're just kind of finding your way through to win. There's no quit's not in there. So I talk about that all the time with the boys, where you're always finding a way to be successful, and the word quit's never even in there. It's, yeah. You know how we go, right? Like the ski race,
sure.
Right? We saw people that were quitting, that were passing us on our way
Which
out.
affects you.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not you, but it was like getting into my
for me, it's like we gotta get going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, there's things that'll come in your life that will kind of make you want to quit, right? And the problem, if you have ever had that mindset of quitting, it's in the back there somewhere. I've done it before, I can do it again. And so I think it's just so important that the mindset of just no quit, right? Now, I'm not talking about like pushing yourself to injury or anything like that, but just having the growth mindset of what can I do to keep me in the game? Everything you're doing is to reach that goal, and the word quit is never even in your head.
And I've got if you don't mind talking about Fiji for a second, because of this, with this subject, is it okay if we dive into that? So at Fiji, there was multiple camps, and the last camp that you came into, you guys, we were all ready for it. And I'm watching Shaun, you're like limping into camp. And I thought, ooh, I hope everything's okay here. You had cut yourself earlier on, which I knew about, but it started to get an infection. What do they call it again? It's like something to do with the water. Trench foot. And it actually knocked several teams out. In fact, that camp, when you guys came in, it had knocked out a couple of the teams. Pretty serious thing. They gave you the wrong antibiotic, I think it was.
They gave a lot of people the wrong.
Did they?
Yeah. It wasn't until later that they figured out what antibiotic that we should have been taking Yeah.
So we immediately got you in. The next morning, you guys leave, and Shaun's like, dude, but you were not going to quit. There was nothing in that mind. It was amazing to watch. I'm like, this is incredible. And you made it all the way into that finish line. If you get the chance to watch it, when you watch Shaun gets out of the canoe, and I mean,
I can't walk.
You couldn't walk. You couldn't walk.
Yeah.
You had that mindset. I mean, there was no quitting you. It was incredible.
That's the key. That's a good way to look at it, right? That race, it ended with I think it was like a 40K
long
outrigger, very long outrigger. I remember waking up and I told James, I'm like, I can't walk. I literally couldn't walk. And he says, well, you can paddle. I'm like, you bet I can paddle. And luckily that ended with the paddle, because had it been a trek, there's no way. But the mindset there for me, leading into that outrigger section, we had just come off a really long mountain bike. We came into a staging area where we had to box up our bikes, and we knew that the next section, it was dark. It was probably like midnight or 1 a.m. And I knew that the next section was a paddle board, and I knew how bad my foot was. James and the other people on the team wanted to take a sleep break there at that transition area. And in my head, I'm like, I can't take a rest here, because there's no way I'll be able to get moving again. So I went and talked to the people who were running that TA, that transition area. And they told me that the currents were working in our favor, because we were going from a river to the ocean. And then from the ocean, we had to find a checkpoint off the shore. And they told me that the current was working in our favor. So I went and I went back to our team. I'm like, hey, this is the time to go, guys. I'm like, I know we're tired and we're hungry, but this is our time to go. And James like, if you put my bike together, then we'll go. I'm like, done. He ended up putting his bike together. But like, I knew that was something that would keep me in the game. And so I wouldn't have to drop out, right? So just those little things that if that's what you're thinking about is the end result, rather than ways that could take you out of it, you're always looking for success.
So you knew the finish line was there, system, and then you piece it together from there.
Yep.
I like that. Actually, I didn't know that part of that you talked about, the waves and the currents. I was not aware. It was also crazy at the end of the finish line. Didn't get into that part.
And the other thing is, you had packed us some of those Fiji juices and Coca-Colas that were in our bike boxes. Oh, that was like, that was great. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a boost of energy right there.
That was incredible. Incredible to see you guys come across the finish line. What a remarkable experience. Was there anything else that drove you during that I mean, of course, Amy was going to be there, and that Amy's his wife and incredible. Also an endurance athlete.
Yeah.
I mean, she's done quite a few.
Yeah, she's done Squaw Peak a number of times too.
Times.
Yep, 6 times. Yeah.
Wow. Squaw Peak is the 50-mile race. This is a pretty sizable amount of elevation.
Yeah, a lot of vert.
Yeah, a lot of vert. Pretty incredible. But she was there, which was kind of cool to have her at the finish line. But what was like you were just driven. I mean, you were driven to finish that. Yeah,
there was a time where I was really struggling in that race. And it was going up Vua Falls. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just left that camp and done that really long section through the river, which was a super challenge. And I mistakenly dismissed calories. I wasn't eating like I should have. And we came into Vua. Actually, there was a checkpoint right before Vua Falls where they were like almost trying to talk us out of going any further. It was like, just stay here and do Vua Falls when it's light. And I was kind of cocky and said, I think we got this. And we kind of pushed on. And by the time I got to the falls, I was depleted on calories. My mind was low on sleep. I think it was like day 6 of day 10, right? Of 10 days of racing. We were on day 6. I was very fatigued. And I got to that wall, and what should have been instinctively setting up my rope, right? Because we had a major ascent up this cliff wall with multiple pitches of getting off and on ropes. And I got to the first rope and blank. It was like, how do I set this up? And I that was like one of my
fatigued everything.
Normally I can set that rope up, no problem. But it took me way longer than normal. I was confused, and I did that first pitch and literally just kind of had to take a step back and like collect my wits. And really, I kind of thought back to what was my why? Why am I doing this? Right? Why? And what came to mind was my family. I just kind of thought in the moment of everyone back home, even my students at the time. I thought, they're going to be watching this and I want to make them proud, right? That was kind of like, that was my why. And that really, in that moment, it gave me the power to do everything it was like everything went silent and I was just in the zone. And from there on, I was just smooth sailing the rest of the way. But it was kind of weird how it went from chaos and fear to silence and focus.
Wow.
Just by honing into my why. Crazy.
That's incredible. Why is so important. Well, we're coming to the end here. A couple quick, thank you so much. This has been incredible.
Yeah.
Like, we could go on and on. I'll save some of these from when we get out on the trail, right?
Yeah.
Couple quick questions thrown at you. Favorite place to run? Do you have a favorite? Like, you've ran all around all over. Do you have a favorite place?
Home base.
Home base.
Right here at the Wasatch, Timpanogos.
Yeah.
I can't, it never gets old.
Yeah. Never, does it?
Mm-mm.
It's incredible. Favorite season to run?
Fall.
Yeah, me too. The leaves right now.
Unbelievable.
Do you listen to music when you?
I don't listen to music.
No?
I really just kind of like to, the boys ask me this all the time. Can we bring music on our runs? I'm like, just listen to nature.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. Me too. Trail or road for running?
Trail.
Yeah, me too. Awesome. Thank you, Shaun. Shaun Christian, so grateful that you joined us here. So much inspiration, so much wisdom that you shared with us. Appreciate what you're doing for all the local races and everything that you've done for our community to help our endurance sports community here, and also for the boys, countless amounts of boys and families, and that'll go on for generation and generation. So thanks for joining, Shaun. And thank you for joining for this episode of A Cup of Joe, the podcast with Shaun Christian. Make it a great day.